Hey guys, it's Joey Svensson. This whole conversation you're about to hear with Pastors Greg Surratt and Chip Judd is in response to some significant backlash the Seacoast Instagram account received from a post that showcased snippets from a recent Chip Judd sermon. This Instagram post going viral due to some stern words he had on boundaries needed between adult children and their parents. Check this out.
You have no more responsibility between you and your parents. The Bible says when you get married, leave, cleave, become one. Leave, cleave, become one. Leave who? Mother and father. Guess what? The moment you say I do, you have no more responsibility between you and your parents. Wait a minute, did you say none? I said zero. I said zero. Oh, but my mom wants me to come home for holidays. I don't care what she wants. You're not responsible for meeting her wants. Well, she'll get angry. You're not responsible for her anger. Where's her anger? It's in her circle. Now, can you choose to go home? Absolutely. But if you make her responsible for your choices, what are you giving her? Authority and power to control you.
So Chip Judd, along with Pastor Greg Surratt, addressed a lot of the pushback on this episode. Can you guess why there was so much pushback? All right, so this episode will also be airing on Chip Judd and Greg Surratt's new podcast, The Endurance Factor. So go check out their podcast as these two set out on it to help and guide listeners on how to stay on a path of living well and finishing strong. The link to the Endurance Factor podcast is in the show notes. Hope you enjoy this episode.
Just because I don't believe or agree doesn't mean I can't learn from you.
Why did you have to bring that up?
Okay, that one I'm super embarrassed about.
Do you like me?
Do I like you?
Yeah.
As an individual or as a podcast?
Just as a person.
No, I like you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I don't have any interest in appearing to be stronger than I am.
I ain't bow to Nebuchadnezzar's statue. He gonna lead. You feel me?
How do we love people who see the world differently than we do?
What would it look like if we truly loved all of our neighbors? Could listening to their stories be the first step? This is Seacoast Church, and there's way more to talk about.
All right, guys, welcome to the podcast. This is a special episode because we are releasing this on the Seacoast Things You Won't Hear on Sunday podcast, as well as, and many of you Seacoast listeners may not know this, but your founding pastor and his sidekick,
Tonto.
and Pastor Chip Judd, who is very beloved around here as well, started a podcast called the Endurance Factor Podcast based on y'all's book. What are you laughing at?
Tonto.
Could be Robin.
I'm still
Could be
trying.
Robin.
Yeah, Batman or Robin. Okay.
You like Robin better?
No, not a whole lot, no.
Well, it's also a special episode because we're really going to be focusing on a viral post that Seacoast put out on the Instagram because of this guy right here, Chip Judd. You said some stern things that ruffled some feathers, man. In fact, last time you checked, 500,000 people heard these words. I want to say there were, 900 likes, hundreds and hundreds of comments. And so...
No, there were 20,000 likes.
Whoa, okay. Gotcha.
Come on, Joey.
1,000 likes. My bad.
Get your facts straight.
So we will play the clip, but Pastor Greg, I want to start by saying I was thinking about this and how both of y'all are great teachers, and I could never imagine you saying what he said in the same way. You would for sure be way more tender. It would never come across that abrasive. In fact, if you ever say, hey, I'm going to be controversial here, it still wouldn't be as controversial as this guy. Does it make you feel uncomfortable?
Oh, he's grumpy.
Grumpy?
Yeah, we all know that. He just leveraged it. Somehow somebody leveraged his grumpiness on Facebook, and he just ticked a whole bunch of people off. That's all that happened.
Does it make you uncomfortable?
What's that?
just all of the number of people. I mean, I'm going to read some comments of people that are just like, what in the world is this guy talking about? Like the controversy. You don't like controversy, right?
No, not really. I don't like controversy, but it was interesting. I'll go behind the scenes on this whole thing. So I saw it starting to happen before I think he knew anything was going on.
Oh, he didn't know until like 2 days ago.
Yeah,
I don't check this stuff at all.
Well, somehow I got a backstage pass to all that stuff a few months ago. Somebody, I don't know, I asked for something and I got onto the
Seacoast.
Yeah,
Instagram.
I know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
the Instagram
yeah.
behind the scenes where you sell that. And it just annoys me most of the time because it just pops up. And so that time it starts popping up. And I start looking at it and I'm going, oh, wow. Oh, this is, oh, wow. And then I started reading the comments. And what happens, this is my theory on all of this. So what happens is, like on Facebook or Instagram, you have a group of friends. It goes out to that group of friends and you get mostly likes. It doesn't go to everybody, but you get mostly likes, a few shares, nice comments. We like you. We love you. You're wonderful. All this kind of thing. And then a few people share it and it goes to their friends and they're pretty civil too. But when it gets to about the third level of sharing, whatever it is, people go, Craig, that's where you get trolls. And I'm not calling all those people trolls, but you do get that. And you get people that say nasty things because they don't like you and they assume things about your motive. That's out there on the periphery. Well, this thing started to build like that. Just, I watched it. And then Chip, a couple days later, texts me and he says, dude, have you seen what's going on with this thing? And he's kind of excited about it. And what I wanted to say, and I didn't say it, I held back, but is he
hearing it for the first time?
No.
Okay.
Well, this part, yeah. But what I wanted to do, and I did, was get in his excitement. I don't want to be the guy that poo-poos on his joy. You know what I'm saying? So that's cool. That's awesome. That's amazing. Wow. And what I wanted to say was, have you read the comments? Which is kind of pooping on his joy, right?
No, it probably would have made him happier.
I don't know that I read like however many there are, but I read a lot of them, and I wasn't bothered by any of them.
Yeah, well, I would have been. Yeah.
So as I read some of these comments, I'm going to play one too for you guys, well, anybody listening. There is a online community in conjunction with the Endurance Factor podcast, and some of these folks get the content beforehand, and we're able to send questions in. Like I said, I'm going to play one, read some from Instagram. But what I would like to ask as we're listening, and then you can answer what you think, Pastor Chip, after we kind of go through some of these, is what do you think the problem was or is? Do you think that they're not hearing you correctly, or do you think they don't like what you're saying? Because I would say most of them, in my opinion, they're not hearing you correctly, because I know how you are with your family. I know how you adore your grandkids, and you'd be miserable if you didn't have a relationship with your kids and grandkids.
Yeah, but I would probably dicker semantically with you. If you take that clip, they're hearing what I said correctly, because that's all they had to go on. And that's why the comments didn't bother me. If you go by that clip alone, I'd probably be offended with it. But if you hear what came before, what came after it, you're not getting the whole message, which I'm fine with.
So it was kind of clickbaitish, is what you're saying.
I don't know.
It definitely was.
Yeah.
I don't know. What does that mean?
All right. Come on, people. Respect for parents that raised you. Don't follow his advice. We can love and respect everyone. Set boundaries and still have a relationship with your parents. Bad advice from this guy. Don't listen. Another quote.
All right, hold it. See, that's easy to respond to. Think of the key words this person used: respect, relationship, honor. I didn't say anything about any of those. What I said was, you're not responsible. What does that mean? I can't be legally, morally, or spiritually held accountable for paying their bills, for keeping them happy, for whatever.
Yeah. Yep. These words need to be added alongside leave and cleave. Honor your mother and father, be kind, treat others as you would like to be treated. I have much more. I had a strong-willed and opinionated mother-in-law that I loved very much and would never have thought of hurting her by saying I have zero responsibility. The Holy Spirit should be invited into all relationships. This is the religion of psychology with God's words mixed in. I heard this session in quotation marks, which I don't get that last part. But again, I don't. You made a good point. They heard what they heard because that's what aired, but they're not getting the heart of your message.
No, and they may have some issues of their own. I don't know. But responsibility means, number one, if I'm responsible for something, that means I can achieve that result by myself. I can directly determine the outcome. So am I responsible for my parents' happiness? Can I directly determine the outcome? Can I make my parents happy? No. Well, then I'm not responsible for it. They're again, not hearing the whole message. The message is about boundaries, and it's about, whatever, kind of a cool way God gave me to show it with the hula hoop and all that. I believe serving someone means I see a need that you have, and I choose to give out of my resources, whether it's time, energy, money, or whatever, to help meet that need. Does not mean I'm not responsible to pay your power bill, but I can pay your power bill if I choose to. That's not responsibility. I love you. I don't want to see you hurting. I'm going to pay your power bill, but I'm not responsible. And that's all I was saying. You're not responsible. Should you love, honor? Yeah. Now, I would stress this point. Scripture says to adults, honor your parents. To children, it says obey your parents. So if you've got obey and honor mixed up, I'm going to take issue with that. My mom or dad, now they're both gone, but let's say I'm in my 30s and my mom or dad demands, manipulates, or guilts me into coming home for Thanksgiving. I'm not obligated to obey them. I'm not obligated to make their Thanksgiving wonderful. Now, I can choose to make their Thanksgiving wonderful, but I'm not obligated to do that.
Yeah.
It was interesting, and you may get into this, Joey, but just watching this, I don't know who put together this clip on this.
It's brilliant, whoever did it.
Seacoast team. But it's in a good way, it is clickbait, because it is not the gist of what Chip said.
No.
And like he said, when you watch it the first time, I don't agree with it. I mean, I agree with the principle because I was there. I know he's talking about, but I would agree with
if that's all you saw.
The one you just read is not a troll. That's somebody that I don't agree with that, and I wouldn't listen to that. Now, where they got off is they began to judge his motives and who he is, and that's where it goes crazy with any kind of that type of thing. But I know. Okay, so I know people. I know multiple people whose kids have written them off. Just, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Don't call me. Don't do any of that. And I saw comments of people that said that just fuels the kids just to write them off. And I hate that and all that. I get that emotion. I really get that emotion. I don't think that's what he was. I know that's not what he was saying. Although sometimes it sparks some things that we need to examine within ourselves. That maybe we are a little bit I know I'm a grandparent now. That my kids are, they have their own lives, and we've had to kind of look at, I want them all their Thanksgiving. I'd like to have them all their Christmas, but you know what? I can't demand that.
Right.
They have their own life, and so we need to work together on how we can, make family happen without me being overbearing and outside, invading boundaries that I don't belong in.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, and we'll get into some of these comments in this conversation, is a lot of people that commented heard the whole message and still had similar sentiments, which I think is actually pretty interesting. Hey, I do want to read a couple of positive ones that actually really stood out. This one, thank you for letting me hear that today. And this is specifically Instagram comment, so I'm assuming they probably didn't hear the whole message. I'm not religious anymore, but you spoke the absolute truth, how it should be when a marriage starts. That marriage is solely based on two new people creating a family of their own. Honestly, thank you for posting it. Another person said...
I saw that one and I really liked it.
Yeah.
Because that person caught the spirit of what I was trying to say.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's really about the marriage, not about the parents.
Right. Mm-hmm. Another one, I would love the whole talk on this. Is 100% true, and I unfortunately deal with my husband thinking he still needs his mother, even though we have been married for almost 4 years.
Yeah. That's what I'm after.
Yeah.
That's what the whole point was.
Yep.
Not cutting off your parents and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. All right. I hope I don't mispronounce your name, but thank you for being in the Endurance Factor community. If you're interested in checking that out, go to the show notes. But Katie Bomarito has this to say.
Chip, I like your idea, but what about when your parents get older? When they're reaching into their later 70s and 80s and your kids are out of the nest and you and your husband are well established in life? I kind of feel like I need to check in on my parents a lot more and remind them how much I love them, make sure they're doing okay, and just see what's going on. It doesn't have to do with not loving my husband, but it has to do with loving my parents well.
Love it. I love the tone. I love the gift of respect that's buried in there, even though you're disagreeing with me. Very well done. Here's the thing. If you remember the context and the point was leave, cleave, and become one. The point was correcting what I've been counseling for 40 years. The point was correcting an error that is unintentionally but often made, and that is that the emotional center of a person's life doesn't shift from parents to spouse. And I've watched the damage of that, and I've watched the difficulty that people have bringing it up and talking about it, and just the tension it can produce when one or the other of the spouses feels torn between their new spouse and their parents. And it ought not be so. And part of what I mean is the parents ought to be the ones to say, hey, that's between you and your husband. That's between you and your wife. I don't want any part of that. Now, when you get to, again, I love the spirit of your question. I would assume there's multiple years to this marriage. So I would assume are at a place where you both feel comfortable with your relationship with the aging parents. And you can easily decide what you jointly are committed to. We're willing to help emotionally. We're willing to help physically. We're willing to help financially. But again, to just split hairs, the key word is, number one, it was focused on a marriage. And number two, the key word is responsibility. You guys here you are in your marriage, the wonderful lady that asked the question. You guys can choose to do whatever you want to do for your parents, but you're not responsible. There's no law in the land, and I mean even spiritually, that I think holds you responsible. Now, I think you're missing a great opportunity if you don't serve your parents. I believe in serving. But if you think of the definition of that, serving is my meeting your needs at my expense. What I'm really digging at with that little clip is you're getting your needs met by meeting your parents' need. In other words, you need their approval, you need their whatever, and you can't stand the thought of disappointing them.
That's what needs to cease.
Yes. Yeah. So it sounds like you're way past that, the person who asked this question. I forgot her name, forgive me. But and again, I think you're in a position, sounds like, that you and your husband. Now, let's go ahead and get in the weeds on purpose. Let's suppose you want to do things for your parents. Time-wise, maybe they live somewhere else and you want to go spend a month there. And your husband's like, whoa, I'm not sure I'm okay with that. That for me, that's got to get on the table and got to be talked about. And you may not always get what you want. Because your first priority, once you're married, your first priority is to your spouse. Only person ahead of that line is God himself. Even your children take a backseat to your spouse, in my opinion.
What would you say to me because I think this really gets to the heart of what a lot of people's uneasiness is, but you speak to me in candor. We have a relationship where you can be a straight shooter and you say, hey, Joey, how are your parents doing? Chip, I'm not really responsible for them. I'm busy. I don't really call them. I don't know. Those are my parents, whatever. And I had like a really lackadaisical attitude. And I mean, you agree, right? I don't have any responsibility, but there's obviously like there's a heart thing going on, right?
Yeah, that would make a warning light go on. I would be like, that sounds a little detached and emotionally frigid. So yeah, I'd want to pursue that. I mean, again, if we had the relationship to do so.
But I have that right if I want to
You do. Yes, you do.
But you would say that probably wouldn't be guided by the Holy Spirit to have that sort of posture?
I would say there's a breakdown there somewhere.
The way you said it indicates a heart issue to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so is this money? Like, does this person nail it? I think that the key here is that he says we have no more responsibility for them or pleasing them at the expense of our spouse. Not that we stop having relationship or caring for them in their elder years. In other words, the person we rely on and prioritize after God first and most is our spouse, because that's a covenant relationship, and our children, also a covenant relationship, then parents, not because they don't matter, but because they've already fulfilled their duty as parents to raise, train, and provide for us. Their role shifts after we leave and cleave. It's up to us to set healthy boundaries together with our spouse for how we show up in every other relationship. That's Rebecca Reed.
Dude, Rebecca Reed. You get an A+.
Ding, 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 ding.
I'm telling you what, now that I don't think I could have worded it any better. That's beautiful. Beautiful. And
maybe she should work for you.
Man.
Maybe people wouldn't have been so upset if she spoke for you.
Rebecca, would you please comment to the comments? No, hey, listen, everybody out there, I'm fine with the comments, man. You got a small clip of a long message, and I understand some of the comments because that little clip made it sound worse than it actually is, and I stand by it. But
I think it would be interesting. I don't know if this is where you want to go. I think about this. Again, everybody has a right to say whatever they want to say, but a part of what I would love to change in our world, if I could, is the climate, the
kind of the tone.
The tone is what I'm saying. So whether it's a clip of Chip doing that, one reason it goes viral is because a lot of people disagree, and you say things and all that kind of thing, or it is a political thing that happens, something in the news or election or whatever. We respond to it. We have feelings about it. It's normal, but at some point, we have to be responsible for the things that how we say, the tone of how we say things. I had just to one up Chip. I had a viral thing a few months ago that somebody in our church
more views.
Yeah, I got on the Rolling Stone magazine.
Yeah.
Did you get in Rolling Stone?
See?
Not yet.
No, sorry,
okay.
Chip.
It's not a goal.
So this one was a very high-profile person in our church, made a comment that I would have made and all this kind of stuff. And so it went, out there goes beyond this little circle, out to the big circle, spins out. And then you've got cray-cray everywhere. And then it gets turned on me that I am this person's pastor, and I must be a bad pastor. Okay, then it's all kind of, this guy is this, and this is this, and this is it. And if you were biblical, this is what, and this church must be, and it just goes nuts with all of these assumptions.
Yeah.
And they don't even know you.
They don't know me.
They don't know you.
They don't have a clue. And so that's interesting to watch that happen. And so for me, it's informative and instructional to take a big look back and go, how do I respond to something that I don't agree with? Maybe don't have all the information on, but am I really self-aware enough to admit that I don't have, like Chip's thing wasn't the whole thing. It was just a piece of it. And that's the world we live in today. And by the way, that was gold. I mean, everybody's looking to go viral. That's the deal. But out there, it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, almost like if our posture could always be what I don't know, not what I just consumed for 30 seconds, but I wonder if the rest of the message that this guy gave brings a little bit more understanding to what he just said.
Or even one of the comments, I can't remember which one it was, they just flat disagreed with Chip, but they did it they didn't say, well, you must be an idiot, or you're, so it's at that jumping point off.
Right.
You don't have to agree with everything. I mean, if we all agreed on everything, one of us is unnecessary, but it's the jumping off point where that I start to make assumptions and then assassinations of character.
Yeah.
That's where it's a problem.
Probably a thought I would have, and again, I've, as Greg has very astutely pointed out, I don't have much experience at this end of the swimming pool, but my deal is this, man. I'm in the business of changing the way people think about God, about themselves, about life, about everything. So if this in any manner, shape, or form stirred the pot to get people to think,
that's got to be a good thing.
I'm good. I'm good with it, man. And forgive me, and please don't hear this harshly, but I don't need everybody to like me. In fact, if everybody likes me, I would be worried. And
they don't. Don't worry about that.
But again, just to restate, I'm thrilled to have taken part in a moment that possibly caused some people to look at something in their life through a different lens and decide if they want to make any adjustments. And that's worth getting out of bed in the morning.
So real advice that I gave someone probably
this ought to be good,
probably
Greg.
10 years ago. Yeah, I shudder at some of the things that I say.
Yeah, really. Joe, you realize you can be fired, right?
But I had a guy basically sitting with his wife, and he said, look, my mom comes over to the house. She doesn't look at my wife. She says snide comments about my wife in front of my wife.
This is the kind of stuff I've dealt with for 40 years.
Right. Like disregard, ill regard, whatever you want to call it. And, after a longer conversation, I basically told this guy, I was like, look, if the picture you're painting is the accurate picture, I would say for starters, your mom can't come over and enter your house and have that sort of posture towards your wife. Like basically your mom can't be welcomed. Now, I'm not saying, to detach from your mom, don't ever talk to your mom. Hey, go out to eat with your mom, go visit your parents, go love your parents. But as far as her coming into the house when your wife is there and her treating your wife like that, it just doesn't work. That too stern.
I just want to make sure everybody realizes that was Joey talking.
That was me.
That wasn't me. It wasn't Craig. That was Joey.
Because a lot of people on Instagram are asking, what do you do when parents don't understand boundaries?
Listen,
this mom doesn't understand boundaries.
I agree with, I'm joking about identifying you. I agree, and I'd go further. Here's what I would say. I'd say, Mom, love you. So honored. I feel like you and Dad did a great job raising me. But here's the deal. I married Betty Sue over here, and she's the love of my life. And you cannot have a relationship with me if you're not willing to have one with her. If you're not willing to have a relationship with my wife, you cannot have one with me. And I would say that.
What do you think? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's yes. I would go
little less farther?
No, in some situations. I'm going to give you an example. So, and I'm going to try to keep it where I don't, violate any trust. But at the retreat, a pastor was having a mother-in-law issue. Okay, which is what we're talking about a little bit here. Or
father-in-law, yeah.
Yeah, either way. But this one was a mother-in-law issue, and something happened that she was overlooked, okay? And so she reacted to it in a very bad way. And he felt even it was racial. Okay, there was some racial stuff going on. And he was ready to close her off, whatever. And I started to dig around a little bit. I think it was the Holy Spirit, maybe, or maybe it was the devil. I don't know, but poked me on that to say, okay, the principle is right, and I agree with Chip's principle. It's right. I've been around long enough to know that there are some parents that they don't understand boundaries at all, or they do whatever they do. But on this one, I said, okay, all right, back up just a second. So I'm a grandpa. You put yourself in the picture of being a grandpa, and whether it was intentional or not, you were excluded from a very important situation with a grandchild. How would you feel? Okay, so first of all, put yourself in their shoes. How would you feel? Well, I didn't do it on purpose. No, I'm not saying you did it on purpose. I don't know. I don't think you did. But she thinks so. She feels that. And even the stuff that she said that she shouldn't say, the Bible even talks about in Proverbs giving people a pass on some of that stuff. Don't be careful lest you hear your servant cussing you or cursing you. You know, that's giving it a pass just a little bit. Let's look at her. I told him this is what I would do if I was you. I would go hat in hand and do as much as it depends on you to repent, say I'm sorry, and fix that deal. And it's not what he wanted to hear, so I repeated it again. And go and fix that deal, and forget the racial stuff, forget the things that were said, forget anything. Give her a pass on some of that. You repent and fix some of that, and see what you can do. And then you may have to lay down some boundaries if that doesn't work. I don't know if you don't have to agree with me on that.
No, I agree. I mean,
real quick, how can you tell that he didn't like what you said? It's just a blank stare? Is that how you pick
that's
up on
not
it?
what I wanted to hear. But he was a good guy, and I think that.
I mean, I think the key, Craig, is everybody's, again, remember, this all hinges around the word responsibility. If you're the one who's supposed to send out the invitations or whatever, and this person was omitted, you got to own that.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I said, you got to own your oversight here.
That's called responsibility. You got to own that. Now, if you own it to the nines and you grovel and do everything that's appropriate, and you still are treated horribly for months to come, now we're talking something different.
Now you've got to, as much as it depends on you, live in peace. You're not.
Which is a great verse, by the way.
You're not living in peace, so we've got to make some changes.
I love that as much as it lies within you. In other words, I can't make everybody like me. I can't make everybody be at peace with me, but I am responsible to try. Mm-hmm. And I mean, parents, I'm all for it. The heart and soul of what I was trying to say is about the integrity of a marriage. I say any counselor probably would say that at least 51% over 40 years of counseling, at least 51% of it's been in the context of marriage. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of what drives my thinking is that, and I have seen, like, here's how I say it if I'm teaching on marriage. Bible says, leave mother and father, cleave to one another, become one flesh. What I tell people is this: you can't do two until you do one, and you can't do three until you do two. So that leaving, I've watched the pained expression on a husband or a wife's face when they're communicating that I feel like your father's opinion is still more important than mine. I feel like it matters more to you that your mother is getting what she needs from you than I am. That's not right. Mm-hmm. Now, I've seen very, very rarely a married couple say, well, I don't like the fact that you want to be nice to your parents. Mm-hmm. I don't see that. We're talking about where there are conflicts over who owes what to whom. And I just don't think it's that confusing.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear. And then together, you as husband and wife, again, remember, that's what this particular clip was about. Together, you determine how far you're willing to go to meet the expectations of either set of parents.
Do you think it's possible that one or the other spouse can be so insecure in, like, you have a relationship with your mother and they can be so insecure they can drive a wedge in the relationship with the mother?
In a skinny minute.
How do you handle that?
Now, you said drive a wedge in the relationship with the mother?
Well, let's say this. Let's say that you've got, and it could be a son, daughter, daughter, doesn't matter the sex on it. And one spouse is extremely insecure in themselves.
Right.
And so they're putting unreasonable demands, I would say unreasonable demands, on their spouse to separate from their parent.
Right.
Is that possible?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that happens too. In other words, I'll just say it a little differently, that like the husband, we'll just use the husband, is jealous of the relationship the wife has with her mom.
Yeah.
And now, let's say that the wife has successfully leave Cleve and become one, and yet he still feels this need to overmanage and over-control the exposure and connection she maintains with her family. Yeah, that's unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, remember,
that's a boundaries issue too.
Absolutely.
He's going outside of, and he may even use the Bible to, whatever.
That happens a good bit. Yeah.
You get a kick out of this, so I'm going to read a comment by a longtime Seacoaster, Joe Riddle, and I told Pastor Greg this in the lobby one time with Mr. Joe, and we were in Israel together, and he was being self-deprecating, and I basically said, "Well, Joe, you realize this is the only church where I could be a pastor and you can be an elder." The only church that would allow that. But
we're rethinking that, Joey.
Well, I think we have already rethought all of that.
Here's a really good verse that he sent this, and it sounds like responsibility to me. It's 1 Timothy 5:8. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, so I would imagine own household is the nuclear family, wife, kids, husband, kids, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives.
Right.
Now, I don't know in the context, you hit up Jack Hoy or maybe one of y'all knows, but is that like financial provision? I don't know. But there does seem to be some sort of responsibility element here.
Believe it or not, my phone's already on that, because when all this started when all this started to happen, I thought I thought of that verse, and I thought I need to go look at that and make sure I'm not perverting it. Contextually, right before that, he's talking about widows. Honor widows who are widows indeed, verse 3, and he goes into quite a bit of talk about the widows. And then he says to make some return, first learn to practice piety in regard to their own family, and to make some return to their parents. For this is acceptable in the sight of the Lord. And then it goes on to say some more about widows. And then verse 7, prescribe these things as well, so they may be above reproach. But this is New American Standard. But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Now, I don't really care which way that knife cuts, but my suspicion would be, like you said, he's talking about specifically your nuclear family. Like, I married Colleen. That verse is referring to my taking care of anything from me down, you might say. But I'm okay if you stretch it to be even living parents. But here's the deal. You're still not responsible for the debt they've incurred. My father died owing way more than he owned. My older brother had to fight off creditors for my mom. I felt absolutely no obligation to pay off my father's debt. Now, was I going to allow my mother to live destitute? Absolutely not. But I wasn't going to put her in a, $1 million condo. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. In other words, whatever. Again, remember that my comments were about marriage, but in this whole area of ministering to aging parents, I believe the greatest of all is the servant of all. But we serve willingly, not out of obligation. I want my children to want to be near me. I don't want them to feel like they have to. I don't want my kids to come home for Thanksgiving because I make them. I want Thanksgiving to be so much fun they want to. And if they get a better offer, here's my deal. If they get a better offer, it's got to be pretty good because I take pretty good care of them. So if they get a better offer, dear Jesus, go take advantage of it because I got next year. And if I don't have next year, I've had lots of great Thanksgivings. I just don't think like that.
Talking about the scripture that Joe sent in my reading on just I'd love to go deeper on all of that and it'd be fun, but my reading on that is that, by the way, let me give you a funny one. So Mayor Daley, the original Mayor Daley of Chicago, when he finally retired, they found out he had 272, I think it was, relatives on the payroll of the Chicago deal.
Wow.
So the Chicago Sun-Times, I think it was, or one of the newspapers, maybe it's the Tribune, came to him and said, that sounds a lot like nepotism to me. And he said, no, even the good book says that a man that won't take care of his own family is worse than an infidel. But, in context there, it sounds like the church has got a widow's list of who they've got to take care of.
Yeah.
They need to take care of.
Right.
And there's a X amount of money that we've got available, and the list might be bigger than the money that we've got.
Yep.
So we're going to go through there and we're going to say, if you've got a family that can do it, that needs to be a part of their responsibility rather than just going, church will take care of them, government will take care of them, whatever it is. We need to look and say, okay, what is my responsibility?
Right.
And see where that goes.
Yeah.
I don't know that says that you've got to, in other words, I don't disagree with Chip at all on the boundaries things, but it's more nuanced depending on the situation.
It's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with my parents, they're mid to late 70s, and I have no problem with saying it this way. And I feel like I have healthy boundaries with at least what you're talking about. I feel responsible for my parents, but it's in a good, generous way. Like, they're in Charleston, I'm in Charleston. If they need me, I'm going to prioritize it. Obviously, they're also not very needy. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't take advantage of that. I would say I've heard of some parents who, I mean, gosh, I've heard recently of a parent who will have the husband drive 45 minutes because they live that, it's just like, help me with the DVD player. And he has to drive 45, that's unhealthy. But are you comfortable with that verbiage of, I feel responsible for my parents, I love them?
No, I'm not. I'm comfortable with I love them, and I'm comfortable with I enjoy serving them. I'm comfortable with I'm able to help them, and I'm comfortable with all that. But I'm not comfortable saying I'm responsible for them.
Even if it's a voluntary, like I love.
You're still not responsible.
So it's just a poor choice of words.
Yeah, I'm being intentionally fanatical about semantics. It's the wrong choice of words.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. Again, the intent of the clip was the marriage thing. So, talking to a couple, and she's feeling, that wife is feeling like she's not getting the full emotional connection with her husband, and she would use as an example. I just want to process life with him. I want to process how his day went, whatever. Well, this particular guy called his father every morning on the way to work and every afternoon on the way home from work. So by the time he got home, he'd already processed his day. He had nothing left. Who got that? His father got that. Who didn't get that? His wife. Who does he owe that to? He owes that to his wife, not his dad. And both of them, the dad and the son, the first time it ever came up, should have recognized, you know what, son? That emotional part of you belongs to your wife now, not me. I'm supposed to get leftovers. She gets the main course. She doesn't get crumbs from the table. She gets the main course. I'll take leftovers. And that's my perspective toward my own kids. I don't want the best you have. I want your husband, your wife to get the best you have, your kids to get the best you have. I'll take leftovers.
And you probably see a lot of parents who don't take that perspective. Like,
oh, gosh, no.
In counseling situations, it's pretty common for parents to have way higher expectations than what you would say is healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, now I don't know that I'd go up to 60, 70, 80%, but enough that it's worth the conversations that we're having.
Yeah.
And again, let's remember, my goal is just to get people to think. I don't have to be right, don't need to be right. Not going to lose any sleep over it. But
all right, we're gonna end on a bummer note.
Oh,
sorry, but this will break y'all's pastoral hearts. And it's kind of, I think we would all agree, oh wow, this is kind of a different situation, but it's real stuff. And this also came from y'all's online community. We haven't seen our grandchildren in 6 years, and they live in our neighborhood. We were good parents, excellent grandparents, and good in-laws. We all had a great and healthy relationship. Our grandkids loved us. For unknown reasons, our adult child has decided to go no contact with the entire family. Brother won't talk to brother. Cousins can't play together. Grandparents can't see grandkids. Our son won't talk to us. It's just no contact. We were told to move on. We know couples are supposed to leave and cleave, but I don't think it means they should cut off their parents and extended family because their spouse tells them to. We know God intended for grandparents to have a relationship with their married children and grandchildren. So this person is sitting in y'all's office.
Yeah.
How would you?
I know at least 3 of those right now. And I would say, based on the information that's given there, their kids are dead wrong. Absolutely dead wrong. And their grandchildren will pay a terrible price as a result of that. Because that is an extreme the other direction. In my opinion, I could be wrong. You guys can disagree with me, but that's an extreme. And we may not be hearing all of the story. I'm going to say that.
Absolutely.
I don't have all the story, but I've heard that story enough to know that is probably a kid that has a problem. And a pretty severe problem.
Yeah, I don't remember for sure, Joey, but I think I heard the phrase "for no reason," maybe, and that's absolutely not true. Now, I don't have a clue what the reason is. Let me tell you a story that I think you'll see.
Maybe for no good reason?
Yeah, no healthy reason.
Right.
That response, the only time that would be appropriate is if pretty horrible things had happened.
And y'all may have missed this too. It's because their spouse told them to cut off.
Yeah.
If there was sexual abuse
that's what I was
in the home, yes, I get that.
Or physical abuse.
Extreme physical abuse, I agree with that. But, I don't hear that.
Yeah,
but
we're
maybe
assuming
it
with
is.
this one that,
as I go to tell the story, I'm not sure it would be okay. A family starts dating.
If he starts something off like that, we know it's not okay because he never starts off.
This may go viral.
No. Young people start dating, and parental mixed responses. Next thing you know, the son of that relationship basically is abducted, not literally, but for all intents and purposes, absorbed by the girlfriend's family. And I mean, cut off. The kid comes home to sleep and have some meals. And I mean, that's it. At that awkward age where legally you could probably do something, but it wouldn't be pretty. It's too late, kind of thing. They eventually elope, get married, and that, like, grandkids happen, and there is such a strain of absence. And interestingly, when the young ladies, I don't remember which was first, but when the young lady's parents began to pass away, things started to thaw, if you will. And eventually, there was virtually a complete restoration. And all I can figure is that take that whole leave cleave thing, and they're to a level that's beyond even normal. Something was going on there where that family didn't want to share their part of that new marriage. They wanted to absorb the other, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. In other words, we're not both releasing these two to form their new household. We're taking yours into ours.
Yeah.
And again, in the long run, thank God this particular situation has worked out beautifully, and the young couple's married happily. Kids are doing well. Relationships seem to have all been restored.
And we have to look, too. That's a good example that whatever the photograph is, whatever the picture is right now is not necessarily the picture that it's going to be in a year, 2 years, or 5 years.
Right.
And that's where we have hope.
Yeah.
You know, Joey, one other thing I'd say to everybody.
Mind your own business. Leave me alone.
Well, about my perspective, because I'm very aware of what I'm about to say. My perspective has changed/softened over 40 years of counseling, because a lot of these truths, and I mean truths that I'm committed to, don't play out well in a counseling room, where you might, from the outside, you might say, well, you should just tell them this, and this is what they ought to do. Well, you're not in the room. You don't hear the whole story. You don't know the intricacies of what's going on, and what you say just like off the cuff. This is what Scripture says, and you make it sound so easy. In this particular situation, oh my gosh, the challenge a lot of times in counseling is not figuring out what's wrong, but how to get these particular people to move in a direction that's going to be healthier for them. Mm-hmm. And all those cute little one-liners, even if they're straight out of Scripture, they don't always help.
Yeah. Yeah. The tough verse that we didn't even really talk about, which I think we would all know there's deeper connotation, but Jesus says to hate your parents. So,
Hi-yo, Joey.
What does that word mean?
That was Joey.
Exactly, I know.
What is that word?
That was Joey.
Time to put that at the end of the podcast.
That was Joey Svensson.
We can't figure it out.
Go ahead and give a theological explanation.
Oh, the word didn't mean hate.
Exactly.
You love less than.
There you go. There you go. Tell the Seacoasters what you guys are up to with the Endurance Factor book, Retreat at Church Creek. There may be some people listening that don't even know about that stuff.
Yeah, we are on a mission to help leaders, and specifically pastors, but it's broader than that, live well and finish strong. And as the leader goes, often does the organization, the family, the church, whatever it happens to be. We believe that in order to build well, you need to be well. Mm-hmm. And so that's our mission right now. And we've written a book, and Chip can tell you about that a little bit. We've started a retreat for pastors and leaders that we've had over 1,700 leaders come through. 51% say, changed my life. And so I'm more excited right now about this than I have been about anything in a long time.
Your son actually said you are working harder than you've ever worked.
I've never worked these kind of hours ever in my life. I like to figure that out.
I probably am too in some ways, truthfully.
Yeah.
A key part of that is, we're a couple of older guys, and between us, we've got over 80 years experience in ministry. And both have 40.
He's got most of that.
He's got 60 right?
by a hair. But, we've learned some things the hard way that we'd like to help you not have to learn the hard way. And we really, really, really just want to help anybody live well and finish strong. And, God forbid, but have some fun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to actually just buy the book at this point? Because I know for a while it was
Amazon.
Amazon.com.
Okay, so Amazon. Yeah. And I
Kindle
think,
or hard
and you
copy.
guys are still giving it away for people that join a monthly support. So
we've got a community, an Endurance Factor community that there are hundreds of wonderful people.
I'm telling you.
That give $10 per month, get a free book, and their $10 per month helps sponsor more pastors and leaders to be able to experience what the retreat and what we're
and
doing.
it gets some access to some things we do, like we do some private stuff.
Yeah.
Greg and I live call-in type stuff.
There's an extra podcast feed with content that won't be released anywhere
Right,
else. There's,
right.
you know, all of the little meetings and gatherings that y'all have done, the book club that you've done. I mean, all of that is really good, resourceful stuff that's just sitting there
it's
for
great
anybody.
stuff. There's plenty of good stuff. There's more than $10 worth of stuff there. But at the end of the day, if there was nothing, $10 a month is a way to support the retreat at Church Creek Pastors Collective and helping leaders live well and finish strong.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your time.
Yeah, man.
It's great. I wonder, what's the average age between you two?
The average age between us?
Yeah. I actually don't know.
Probably
You're a little older, right?
Yeah, just a little.
He's quite a bit older.
Quite a bit older. I had
Probably
your
69, you think?
What's that?
The average?
I'm not going to say.
Oh, wow.
So there's an episode coming out on Seacoast podcast with your little brother, and he wanted to make abundantly clear that you are his way older brother.
Which little brother?
Jeff. Way older brother.
Jeff, 6 years younger than me.
Wow,
And he acts
6
like he's
years.
older than that.
That's like another generation.
There's 2 years between Chip and I. 2 years. And, yeah.
That means 2 years of extra wisdom.
You've been listening to the Things You Won't Hear on Sunday Seacoast podcast. In the show notes, you'll see a link to our Facebook group page. Also, we'd love for you to consider subscribing so you get these episodes downloaded right when they come out. Thanks so much for listening.